Hello, healers and health seekers. It's me, Ichoda, healing with medical medium information for 3 years and 11 months now. And today I am doing another interview with another wonderful person from this medical medium community who has healed many symptoms and conditions using the medical medium information. Her name is Michelle, and Michelle, I think you've been healing almost as long as me, right? Or three years or
I'm about a year behind. It'll be 3 years in July.
okay, great.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just get into it, I guess.
Okay.
So what first led you to medical medium? Like what were your primary, I could say conditions, but like what were your primary concerns? What were your primary health concerns? And how did you kind of get to that point? What had you
Well,
done before too?
everything. I've done everything before. I mean, you name it. Medical, spiritual, herbal, cranial sacral, soul retrieval, pharmaceutical, hypnotherapy. There's more. There's probably more.
Yeah.
And I've been healing since I was a child, really, because childhood was pretty traumatic for me. And so, not to start at the very beginning, but what led me to want to find answers out of pure fear and shock at what my body and my mind were going through happened about a little over 3 years ago, when at the age of 48 I was having a hard time walking for physical pain all over my body that I had never experienced before. And being brainwashed by the medical communities, you attribute it to menopause. The hot flashes, the pain, the sleepless nights, the restless leg, tingles and numbness in your limbs. And other than that, there's really no explaining it. So I've never been a heavy exerciser, but I'll go for walks, and I was at times pretty physical, helping my husband build these 2 cabins up here and really basically dig out roads to reach the top of a mountain, and
Oh, wow.
all that's involved in that. We did everything ourselves. We're still doing it ourselves. And so yeah, you try to explain it away by, saying that you worked too hard today. But for me, it just intuitively, I knew that this was something else. And I really was desperate. I was in the most desperate place in my life ever. I was 48 years old 3 years ago, and I was feeling incredible amounts of pain that were just unexplainable. And I told my husband that I just needed to find out what was going on, because I've always been a pretty strong person physically, not for exercising, just from, doing physical work. And I told him that I needed to find out what was going on, and I needed some sort of sabbatical. Without getting into great amounts of detail, we had sold our business, our fine art reproduction business, in Asheville, North Carolina, and we had moved to the mountains here to basically homestead, to become self-sufficient. And we were right in the middle of building these 2 cabins up here when all of this happened. And so we did have help. We had a professional builder and a crew. So I felt like I could kind of step away.
Yeah.
And honestly, I felt like I had to step away because it was just excruciating. And, you know, I've always persevered and, you know, forced myself through things. And I was being stopped by this physical pain. I would get up at times just off the couch to get in, you know, to walk into the kitchen which was 5 feet away in our tiny house that we still live in. And I felt like I was 90 years old and had to hold on to the counter.
Yeah.
So we had built a houseboat on Fontana Lake, and although it's a house floating on water, and we used a generator for power, it was nice. And you know, other than having to bring in our water and our food, you know, I felt like that would be a place where I could kind of get quiet and do some research. So I asked Shannon if I could just stay out there for a couple months and figure out what's going on. So he said, yeah, whatever you need. And he literally drove me out to the houseboat. I moved out there. We brought in a slew of food and water. And he literally got on that pontoon boat and drove it 10 minutes to the marina out every day and left me stranded on this houseboat while I just researched. And, you know, it wasn't fearful for me. It was so peaceful. And I was searching through my Facebook likes section looking for a local photographer because some friends of ours had asked me to do a photography job that I just didn't feel up to doing, physically or mentally. And so as I'm scrolling through my likes, I see medical medium, and I'm like, who is medical medium? I don't remember liking this page. I have no idea who he is. And I just clicked on him. And I scrolled a little bit and read some things, and then I went to his website and I read some more, and I was like, my prayers have been answered, because I literally the week before got on my knees in tears because I was in so much pain that I really needed help from a divine source. And God granted me Anthony William and Spirit of Compassion. And so I ordered all the books at the time, which was Medical Medium, Life-Changing Foods, and Thyroid Healing. And I read them all over the next 2 months. And I started protocols immediately. And I got results in the first week that were phenomenal. So
what happened in the first week?
The first week, I should say that I was diagnosed with multiple food allergies. About, I want to say 8 years previous to that time. So when I say multiple, I was told that I was allergic to basically all meats except fish, all dairy except butter. I was encouraged to eat butter. And I was encouraged to eat sardines out of a can every day to get enough protein.
Oh my God.
And this is from a naturopath, okay?
Right.
And allergic to wheat, dairy, soy, eggs, chocolate, grapefruit, coffee, green peppers, all the meats. You know, mostly a lot of things processed. And so the only thing that I was doing wrong when I learned how to eat for healing through Medical Medium was eating fish, which I was literally forcing down about 3 nights a week. I did not enjoy it. I felt intuitively like it was forced.
Yeah, canned sardines. I mean, that would be really hard to eat every day.
I never ate that. I ate like salmon.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I ate mostly salmon, and
That's a little easier. But.
Yeah, I ate, you know, flounder, just mild fish, you know. And I was told that even though I couldn't eat dairy, I could eat feta cheese because most of that comes from
Goats.
Goat.
Yeah.
Yeah, goat. So I was eating a little feta cheese on my salad at night and 3 nights a week fish. My biggest mistake at the time was I got on the apple cider vinegar trend, and I was drinking about a half a cup of apple cider vinegar every single day.
Oh man, that's a lot.
And I did that for a few years.
Whew.
So just cutting those things out and eating more raw fruits and vegetables and drinking the celery juice. I didn't start the heavy metal detox smoothie until about, I want to say 5 or 6 months later, because I didn't have access to wild blueberries. I mean, we're out in the country here. About an hour to get, certain foods that we can't get here in this small town.
Yeah.
So, the first week, just changing my diet in that way, I lost 6 inches off my waist. I mean, like it was inflammation all over. The inflammation just went down. And I've always had incredible social anxiety. Just the fact that I can do this with you and do lives with Mandy is a testament to my healing.
Me too. Same. Totally.
Yeah. So my anxiety that first week dropped by 70%. I felt like I could jump out of an airplane or speak to a large group of people.
Wow.
And that was a phenomenal feeling. So that's just like what I remember right out the gate. And that's, I want to say within 6 days, eating this way. So yeah, for the next 2 months, I just focused on that, and Shannon brought me whatever food I needed. He would come home to the houseboat every night, and I would prepare us food, and he was still eating meat and dairy and all of that stuff. And so it was difficult eating this way and still having to handle that, those animal products. I was disgusted by it. I was so in tune with the way that I was eating and how I was feeling that I just could not get him on board. He was willing to do celery juice every day from the first day, but that's it.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's the start.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where it all started.
Does he still eat meat and stuff now? Or is he in the no foods? No, he's with you.
He's with me for the most part. He does not eat any animal products. He is 100% vegan, but he eats gluten-free bread, which is great. Gluten-free bread is fine. I just have a problem with like a lot of processed foods. I don't eat processed foods.
Yeah.
But he likes the vegan meats and the vegan cheeses. And, he went through a spell a year later where he went down. He was down for 2 months in pain. And that's a whole other story. You just let me know, which stories you want to hear today. There's a lot. So, yeah, there was a surgeon involved. He absolutely, the surgeon looked at me in the face and said, food does not matter at all when it comes to healing. And that lit a fire under me. And Shannon set up surgery. I mean, to cut a nerve on his rectum to stop spasming from a fissure.
Oh.
And I mean, I'll just go ahead and say it. He had hemorrhoids the size of nickels, grapes, and he had already been on celery juice for a year, but he was eating steak and chicken and all the dairy and the cheeses, and he wanted to have surgery that day. Like, do it. Just cut the nerve. I don't care if I'm incontinent. I'll take that chance. Yeah.
How bad it was, yeah.
And so the surgeon was going on vacation for a week, and I had decided that no matter what, Shannon says. He's going to eat this way for a week, because anybody can do anything for a week.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So we went home and I told him that, you know, he was going to eat this way because it was do or die now. You know, I did not want my husband having any kind of nerve back there cut.
Yeah.
And, you know, dysfunctioning him in any way. So we went home. I still fed him. I fed him the vegan meats and the vegan cheeses just to get through the week, but he mostly ate raw fruits and vegetables, and everything else he ate what I ate. And 1 week later, he's up walking around. He couldn't move. I mean, this man is a mountain man. He can, and he's Gemini, so he has two things going at all times. I mean, projects coming out his ears that he, you know, he'll tell you there's no grass that grows under his feet. So for him to go down without being able to do anything except sit on, you know, lay on the couch of our tiny house for 2 full months through Christmas, it was incredible. He couldn't believe how quickly he felt better. And we tried everything. Anthony shared his story on his page. Anthony shared my husband's story before he shared my story. And, you know, because it's poignant, you know, so many people deal with hemorrhoids, and, after 2 days eating this way, it showed these hemorrhoids that were massive completely disappeared.
Wow.
I mean, gone. The only pain that he was still dealing with was from that fissure, that hairline cut.
Yeah.
And so a week later, he's up walking around. He feels great. He calls the surgeon and says, I need to cancel that surgery. And the secretary said, "Are you sure?" And Shannon said, "Oh yeah, I'm sure." So that was that. I mean, from that point on, he's eats the way that I do, but just not as strictly. You know, I have a lot more health issues that I've been dealing with, and he's about 4 years younger than I am. You know, he could be hit with these same issues in the future or not, because he eats good enough. You know, he takes care of himself to a certain degree.
Yeah, my husband too, he mostly eats the same way, of just he eats a little more fat, and then every now and again, I think like every couple of weeks, he and my son will have some salmon, and that's like their splurge thing. It's good.
Yeah, you just have to, you know, do whatever works for you, and be forgiving with yourself and everyone around you.
Yeah, yeah. And my pets are carnivores, so I have to handle. When you were talking about handling the meat, I'm like, oh, I get it, because I have to handle the meat, and because I get meaty bones for them from the farmer at the farmer's market. It's the marrow bones, you know, all the good stuff, like Anthony said. So I have to cut up the meat for them, and I feed the animals raw meat, and I don't enjoy that process. I'm always like, oh, and I'm like thanking the cow that, you know, gave its life so my pug and my cat could have an enjoyable meal. But and all the fat and the way it smells, I'm like, oh, it's just beefy. It has that beefy smell.
Yes. And I think when you eat this way, when you're eating living foods that are so healing, it really does transform you. And there's such a strong intuition that happens that I feel that animal. Like, I feel the spirit of that animal.
It's hard. Yeah. So when you, what do I want to ask next? I don't know.
Well, I have something for you. Because I remember I've been following you since I first got on. I mean, you've just been such an inspiration to me. And I just want to thank you for so much that you've shared of yourself, because I know that if I'm inspired, you've inspired thousands. And this means everything. So I have been following you since I started almost 3 years ago. And I remember making a comment. I don't know whose page it was, but I made a comment, something to the effect of, a doctor had prescribed a medication to me that made me, things turned down for the worse as a result.
Mm.
And I remember you making a comment underneath saying, please tell me that story. Like, what happened, with your experience with this pharmaceutical and the doctor and that. And I don't think I've ever taken an opportunity in all of my shares to even talk about that. It's just another branch, of what I've experienced. So I can tell that story.
Okay.
If you'd like. When I guess it was 1993, I was 23 years old, and I was living in Clearwater, Florida. And I had, a few years previous, I had graduated from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh with a degree in commercial photography and multimedia. I had moved to Clearwater with a boyfriend, and we lived down there for 4 or 5 years. And I was freelancing at probably 3 different commercial photography studios, trying to work in my field, but I needed medical benefits. So I was working full-time at Sam's Club as a supervisor over the membership department. And I've always been, a smiler, greeter type person that makes people feel really comfortable based on my conditioning growing up. And so, back then they depended on me to explain to someone, a customer coming in, why they didn't qualify to shop there, because you had to qualify to shop at Sam's Club in the beginning.
Oh,
when
really?
they first started. Yeah. You had a licensed professional, a business owner, a lawyer, a nurse, something to that effect. And so I had to explain to people why they didn't qualify to shop there and make sure that they left out the door still, smiling, fine about it. And this relationship that I was in was verbally abusive. Both of my parents were alcoholics, and there was a lot of yelling and cursing growing up from the time as far back as I can remember. And so I was conditioned to feel comfortable around people that yelled and cursed, and
Right.
That's what this relationship was. So after being with this person for about 5 years, they got really drunk one night and beat me, like physically beat me, lifted me up by my throat, banged my head against the kitchen cabinets. I got into bed and they literally lifted up the bed and threw it on top of me. And then they took a stun gun to me. And thank God that happened. Thank God that happened, because I woke up and I got myself out of that relationship.
Oh, good.
I was, verbal abuse comes on slow and gradual, and sometimes you don't even notice it because that's how you're conditioned. That's what you're used to viewing as love.
Right.
And it was the physical aspect of what happened that woke me up. So I woke up. I got out of that relationship. I told the manager at Sam's Club that I needed to move. Like, I needed to get out of that town and get away from him. And the very next day, I saw a commercial on television for Asheville, North Carolina, which is a beautiful town that's really diverse and full of art and artists, creative people, and surrounded by mountains. And I grew up in West Virginia, right outside of DC, so I was missing the mountains, living in Florida. And I thought, oh my God, I've never even heard of this place before, but that's where I need to go. I need to be there. And without going into the full story, I told my manager, I wanted to transfer to the Sam's Club in Asheville, North Carolina. And he said, I'll try, but I doubt that that's going to happen. Well, a few weeks later, I'm working at, the Clearwater Sam's, and of all the phones in Sam's Club, I answer the call from Asheville. The manager at the Asheville Sam's Club was calling in reference to Michelle Miller. And I was like, what?
She's amazing. She's amazing. You should totally hire her.
And they were like, and this manager, he was so funny because he had a real strong Southern drawl. I get teased at that a little bit, but mine's not nearly as bad as some people around here. And he said, I said, this is Michelle. I mean, you're calling about me. And he said, well, Michelle, we needed you here last week. How soon can you get here?
Tomorrow.
And I was like, what?
Leaving right now.
I said, what are you offering? What are you offering me? And he said, we're offering you the same position and the same pay. I said, I will be there tomorrow. And I drove the very next day up to Asheville, which was like, I want to say 12 or 14 hours by myself. Wow. By myself. I'd never, ever been to Asheville before. I didn't know anybody there. I got there and I interviewed. I got the job. And it was as if, there's God again, just answering my prayers.
Yeah. And
so, that was 25 years ago about. And so I'm doing really well. I had some time in between leaving that boyfriend and getting to Asheville where I really did, a lot of work on myself, deeper work than ever before. And so I'm working at Sam's Club, and one day I started having these dizzy spells. I make a lot of friends fast. I feel like this is starting to feel like home. The point I'm trying to make is I wasn't sad. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't anxious. I felt like I was in my element. Mm-hmm. But I started having dizzy spells, and that had never happened before. So my general practitioner at the time referred me to a neurologist, and that neurologist diagnosed me with severe depression and told me that I needed to get on Prozac. So I reluctantly got on Prozac, and for the next 2 days, I can't stop crying. Like, I didn't feel sad before. Right. And I cannot stop crying. And I'm literally on my knees alone in my apartment, rocking back and forth, crying, and I can't stop. And that was one of the times in my life that I absolutely considered suicide. It was that bad. It was that bad. And so I read a little deeper on the prescription and read that suicidal tendencies is a side effect of Prozac. So again, by the grace of God, a young girl that I had met through work, I've never ever been able to understand this, and because it's just a higher source. But for some reason, I mean, we didn't have cell phones back then.
Right.
For some reason, my phone didn't ring. My home phone didn't ring. But this girl named Denise, I'll never ever forget it. She's knocking on my door at midnight. Why? At midnight, are you knocking on my door? Like, she may have come to my apartment one other time, and she knocked on my door, and I got up and I went to the door, and I'm boo-hooing and I cannot stop. I mean, it was severe. And And I said, Denise, what are you doing? And she said, I just felt like I needed to come over. And she said, come here. And she took my hand and she got me in her car. And I'm still crying. I can't stop. And she drove me downtown to, I think it's called the Catholic Basilica Church. It's like massive and beautiful and open 24 hours. And we walked through the doors, and she just never let go of my hand. And we walk inside, and there's not a soul inside this church, but there are candles lit everywhere. And she walks me to the front of the church, and she literally pulls me down to kneel down at the pews there at the very front. And she prayed for me. And I will never, ever forget that, ever, because that changed my life. And the next morning, I woke up and I had joy in my heart. There were no tears. And that Prozac was still in my bloodstream. So I called that neurologist and I told him he could shove that Prozac up his what.
Yeah. Good for you.
And I think that was the last time I ever took any pharmaceutical, ever.
Wow.
Yeah, ever again. Because I did. That's not true. That's not true. I was on Lexapro for 4 years to tolerate my first marriage.
Oh.
Yeah, that's true. But I've always dealt with anxiety and depression, and the strongest thing I ever took for that was the Lexapro and like 2 days of Prozac. I always took stuff like St. John's Wort or SAMI and stuff like that, because I never wanted to be on pills. I never ever wanted to be on any kind of pharmaceutical. I had chronic asthma as a child and had to live on inhalers and antibiotics and steroids and chronic ear infections. So
yeah,
after all of that, I never really wanted to do that.
Yeah, I could see how that would put you off and like kind of give you a PTSD about it, make you be like, no, that's not for me.
Yeah, they're very powerful chemicals.
Yeah.
Again, it woke me up. Just another wake up call, and that was just another miracle in my life, for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing that she just like showed up. She was just like, yeah, it's midnight. This isn't weird.
I know.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I still to this day, I can only explain it in a way that she got a message. She got a message.
Yeah.
And followed that calling. And God bless her. I'll never ever forget it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Seriously, I love stories like that because it's, how else could you explain it? It's divine intervention. It's got to be.
Yeah. I've had a lot of trauma happen in my life, but I don't dwell on that stuff. I've always learned forgiveness pretty quickly from the time I was 5 years old and realized that life was pretty serious. Yeah. And there was a lot that's happened, and I don't look back and go, oh, why did that happen to me? I look back and go, oh, I completely understand why that happened. And because there's so many miracles in my life. I mean, all along that outshine the trauma. Our minds and our bodies sometimes have to catch up with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel like using medical medium information has helped heal a lot of that trauma that you might have still carried, when you found it?
Absolutely. Without question. There is so much soul healing in this lifestyle. And the reason I can tell is, one, the anxiety levels.
Yeah.
There's a peace about me. There's a calm about me. There's a grounding about me that has never existed before, ever.
Yeah.
And, right before I found medical medium, I was, surviving my life. I was running my own business for 15 years. I reproduced fine art for over 1,000 artists from all over the world. And, that meant meeting one-on-one with the artists and their original paintings, photographing them, and using Photoshop to create prints on, museum quality prints on canvas and watercolor papers that were indistinguishable from the original paintings.
Wow.
Like, the artists counted on that. These were their children.
Yeah.
And their livelihood depended on these prints so that they would not have to sell their originals or depend on selling their original paintings.
Right.
And I ran that business. I was taught how to do this in the beginning, the first 6 years. And then I took that business over and did that work for 15 years. And it was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of critical deadlines, a lot of different personalities.
Right.
And I grew so much during that time, but I stared at a computer monitor doing Photoshop for 10 to 12 hours a day and did all the work myself. I wore all the hats. I met with the client. I answered the phone. I did the photography, the Photoshop, the test prints, the varnishing, like that
wow.
toxic varnish that you have to spray on canvas prints.
Yeah.
I did wear a respirator, but everything seeps through your skin, your eyes. And so I was so desperate to survive, and everybody wants to thrive, but I was just paying the bills because I've always been too generous with my heart, and I gave a lot away, gave a lot of my time away.
Yeah.
And a lot of but so through that, the adrenaline that I was experiencing was so damaging that I felt like I was just like, my breath was so shallow. I could never get a deep breath. I almost felt like I was choking sometimes when I would have conversations with clients. That adrenaline constantly running through my body made me just just like hypersensitive, hyper functioning. It was just go, 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 go. Right. And I was always late. I never met a deadline. I never met a deadline. I was like always coming up with excuses because one person can only do so much. And I had all kinds of strange things start happening to me. Like, I would get these blistering looking red splotches all over my chest and my neck, to the point where like people would be like, "Are you okay? There's something on you. Like, what is that?" And I've always been very sensitive to other people's energy. And that, in combination with these adrenaline rushes, basically what made me wear my emotions on my skin.
Right.
I wore scarves all the time because it could be somebody that said something that made me happy or made me mad or just neutral. It was just the tiniest little shift in my emotional state would show up.
And it would come out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the same naturopath that told me to eat sardines said that if I didn't get a handle on my adrenaline, it's one thing he got right, I think. If I did not get a handle on that, my stress level, that it was going to turn into thyroid issues pretty quickly. So I will never, ever forget that feeling day in and day out of, I don't have a handle on myself. I don't have a handle on my health. I don't have a handle on my life. I can't get grounded. And I often went outside and stood barefoot on the grass just to get that grounded feeling.
Yeah.
And it worked for a little bit, but then it went right back to that lifestyle, lifestyle. So that's night and day, like, you know, spiritually, emotionally, that's what I noticed today. Another thing that I've noticed with my soul healing through medical medium is that I never remembered my dreams. I never remembered my dreams. As far as I was concerned, I didn't have dreams.
Right, because your adrenals were shot, so you couldn't. Yeah.
When I was a young child, I remember having horrific nightmares here and there, and I remember having dreams that came true. You know, premonitions that would actually happen. So I think I also kind of like, you know how you can try to not remember certain things in your past and then you lose a whole decade?
Right, yeah.
Your memories? I think I kind of shut down my ability to dream and remember those dreams because they either terrified me or they actually came true, and I didn't want any part of either one.
Right, yeah.
And so I want to say it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started having the most vivid dreams, and they were beautiful and they were funny. And some of them were soul healing, you know, kind of felt like my soul needed to have this type of dream in order to cope with things that had happened in the past.
Yeah.
And, you know, that is just incredible.
It is.
I used to, within the past year and a half, I used to pray to the angel of dreams and ask her to help me remember in perfect detail all of my dreams. And I did. But it's been about at least 8 months to a year where I just go to bed and in my mind, I think to myself, I intend to remember every detail of my dreams. And I do.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's new. Like that's really new and wonderful for me. And I've had some wild dreams.
That's the thing. Do you notice as you go along, like things don't heal all at once, but over time, like different things heal, and things that you were like, I never would have thought of that. I didn't know that could heal or that was going to happen, or like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. I noticed
Absolutely.
over time, different things, you know, symptoms disappearing or things that it's like, oh, I didn't even think of that as a symptom. Like most people probably wouldn't think of not dreaming as a symptom because it's not something that takes your function away or, you know, interferes with your awake life, I guess. I mean, people don't think of it as being such. I think it probably kind of does, but
yeah.
When you have like chronic pain or stuff like that, like that's what people would more focus on. But I find, yeah, it's like things like that happen too.
Yeah.
You know,
the chronic pain kind of went away just over the next couple months when I first started. And I've always had chronic lower back pain.
Yeah, me too.
Which I'm sure is shingles. And I've had chronic digestive issues, which could be, you know, strep combined with just emotional distress from the time I was very young, and kind of, you know, being conditioned into that for the rest of your days.
Yeah.
And And you have to keep a journal. You have to keep a healing journal because you forget. You forget that you used to
Absolutely.
deal with these issues. You know, I sometimes go, gosh, my whole life I was so used to feeling sick to my stomach. Sick, sick, sick. I mean, nausea, constipation, cramping. You know, I was diagnosed with stomach ulcers in my 20s.
Oh, wow.
I've always been sick, endometriosis, diverticulitis. And because of my early experience with the Prozac and the neurologist, I just didn't run to the doctor personally because I didn't want to take a chance on having to take a pill.
Yep.
So I probably would have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and all of these things that are so mysterious.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was the same. I didn't ever want to, when I was younger, when I'd have a symptom or anything would come up, I would just power through and deal with it because I was like, I'm not going to the doctor. I was like you, I didn't want to take drugs or um, be prescribed pharmaceuticals that I knew were just a band-aid. So I was like, well, as long as I was functional, I just kind of stayed away. But I know there's so many diagnoses that I'm like, I totally would have gotten that if I went. I
yeah,
totally would have gotten that one. I know I would have because now I've become familiar with so many different symptoms and conditions. And
yeah,
when I did start going, because I did lose function, I got so many diagnoses. And it really was like, what diagnosis do you want? Well, it depends on what doctor you go to. You'll get this diagnosis if you go to this doctor, and you'll get this one if you go to this doctor. And it's just like, okay, I'm collecting diagnoses, but not getting any answers. And I would ask every single one of them. I'd be like, well, what causes this? And nobody could ever answer that question, ever. I'd be like, well, okay, what causes it? How do we heal it? Like, what do we do? How do we fix it? And they're like, well, we can give you this drug that'll suppress your symptoms. Sometimes they would say that, and sometimes they would just be like, oh, we don't know.
right.
But maybe you could
And
go see this other doctor who's a specialist, and maybe they could give you another diagnosis, is what would happen. And I was just like, okay, that's not, I don't want to stay on this merry-go-round of just like being passed off, because it was like everybody wants to pass you off to the next.
mhm.
I don't know. You go see that guy. I don't know. Go see that guy. I don't know. Go see that guy. And it was just like,
Yeah.
nobody
And
knows.
it's a double-edged sword too, because you would feel so relieved to go, oh, this is what I'm dealing with. You know, I've got this label now,
Yeah,
but at least I know what I'm dealing with,
right.
maybe. And then,
Exactly. You would think you had an answer, but then you'd realize, oh, but not, it's just a label. They don't actually have like anything behind it to help. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
it's unfortunate.
When you were talking about photography, I took photography in high school and college, and I was thinking about, because you were talking about the varnish, and I was thinking about all of the chemicals that we used back in the
Yes,
old days, the stop bath and the fixer and the developer, and how
yes,
we just laissez-faire would stick our hands in the chemistry because it was
yes,
easier than using the tongs.
yep,
And our instructors would always be like, don't put your hands in the chemistry, use the tongs. Nobody listened to that. All of us
nobody.
had our hands stuck in that chemistry. I'm just thinking, and I think back to that. And I remember having a professor in college that said, for the love of all that is holy, he said to us, please do not put your hands in the chemistry, because he said, I have a permanent cuticle disease because I put my hands in chemistry and I never listened to that. And he was like, every year, he said several times a year, my fingers and my hands will peel and all this stuff. And did we listen? No, we were young college students. We had our whole lives ahead of us. We were indestructible. We didn't listen. We still put our hands in the chemistry. Didn't listen to him. But I remember him telling us that. And I think back on him and I think, wish we would have listened to that guy because
Yeah,
I did end up with that, where my fingers I used to get, now here's one of those symptoms that like you forget you had. I've never mentioned, I don't like think to mention this one, but I used to get it where I would get these little blisters on my, um, sometimes I would get it on more than one finger, but I would always start on my pinky finger, and then my skin would peel around my fingernails and around all my cuticles, my skin would peel, and it would happen like a few times a year. Same as him, same as what he said. It would happen a few times a year, and I just would have to deal with it, and it would be really painful. Like it was like little heat blisters or something, and they would be really painful. And that does not happen anymore. It hasn't happened. And I don't know when it went away, but it went away after I started medical medium information. And I don't know when it went away because it just wasn't one of my like main symptoms. So I just didn't think about it. But I'm like, yeah, that has not happened in such a long time. It's so cool.
Yeah, to know that you have probably detoxed those chemicals out of your system.
Exactly. All of that. Oh, it was years and years of it. Because all 4 years of high school, several years of college.
Yes. Well, I'm with you, girl. I mean, my dad graduated from Carnegie Mellon. It was Carnegie Tech back in his day. And then after he graduated, he went into the Marine Corps.
Oh, wow.
And he got very interested in photography with his travels. And so when I was 12 years old, my dad built me a dark room in the basement.
Oh, in your house? That's so cool.
Yes, in the house. So it started at 12. And then all through high school, I was the yearbook photographer. And then I got a scholarship to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh for commercial photography. So yeah, those chemicals. And then, my first commercial photography job in Asheville that lasted 7 years was, there was no digital then.
Right.
So it was, processing E6 and negative film.
Yep.
So I was still in the chemicals.
Exactly. Exactly.
But fortunately, I used to get warts on my pinkies. I used to get warts like in the cuticle of my pinkies, but they were warts. They weren't like, red or angry or rash-like, but I would get warts on my fingers and mainly my pinkies. And it's interesting that you say that because I would have never associated those chemicals with warts.
I wouldn't put it past them. And now look, it's like, I remember loving the smell too. Loving the smell of the darkened chemicals because it was like my happy place, because I spent so much time there. I loved it so much. And now I am completely chemically sensitive. And if I smelled a dark room now, I'd be like, I could not ever possibly handle being in a dark room now.
No. I think I like the red light more than the smell of the chemicals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now I just think back and I think of that, and then so many other chemical exposures that I had, like realizing, wow, like all that stuff really, and it was just everybody so laissez-faire about it and so casual. And I mean, just, putting our hands in the chemistry, breathing it in. Breathing in all those chemicals. And I mean, and now I just, oh my gosh, the damage that was doing and like what went into my liver and all these,
But aren't our livers
to think about?
Our livers are so resilient, I think about all the good things that we're doing for our livers today.
Yeah.
It's making a huge difference. And like you said, we notice new things that are happening every single month that we're like, oh my gosh, I forgot I was dealing with that.
Yeah. Doesn't it amaze you too? When I think about like what my liver has been through, I'm just like, our bodies are a miracle. The fact, when I think about all the exposures that I even know about in my lifetime and everything that I've gone through, and my poor liver, because now that I understand how it works and what it does for us, like really what it does for us. And whenever I think about that, whenever I'm listening to any chapter of the Liver Rescue book or reading it, or any of the medical medium books, but Liver Rescue really illuminated what the liver does. And just thinking back over all the exposures and like, I'm still standing. Whoa, my liver is incredible. Like what it can put up with and what it can tolerate and what it can deal with and process, like how, and I was still alive. Like how, I mean, I almost wasn't, but I still am. And I am able to heal and reverse all that stuff. It's just like, Holy
Yeah.
crow. Our livers are miracles. They are just, our bodies are miraculous. I'm
Yeah.
stunned.
We listen. We are all miraculous. You
Yeah,
know,
we
and
really are.
there's a reason for that. You know,
Yeah.
we all have great purpose. We all have great purpose, and you know what you do every week, sharing this information, and what I'm so new at every week now, sharing this information feels divine. It feels like, you know, everything has brought us to the here and now. And, you know, for
Absolutely.
the purpose of helping others find that light, you know, to have hope that that they are empowered. They have everything within themselves to heal. And that's the message that you and I probably came down to earth to share.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like if you're still I don't even want to say standing, because I know some people are not actually still standing. But if you're still alive, I feel like you can heal. Like, I feel like that's medical medium. What he's been telling us is I don't think anybody, if you're alive, you're beyond healing. I feel like everyone can heal. And
Yes.
I don't know what that looks like for each individual person. I don't know if it necessarily looks like somebody's going to be in like I don't know. I guess what we're conditioned to believe health looks like perfect physical specimen, you know, running marathons
Mhm.
or whatever. I don't think that's necessarily what healing looks like for every person. I think some people, yeah, probably does, but I just think it's totally possible to find healing and to find relief and to find functionality and to be back in the world again. And
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the pain that I felt 3 years ago, and I think about what I've been able to do since, um, it is absolutely miraculous.
it
You
is.
know, I've spent probably the last 9 days, I mean, longer, when it comes to, you know, germinating seeds to grow food and transplanting seedlings and getting them into the garden. I'm probably growing 75 different kinds of food, herbs, and pollinators this year.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
And I feel like I have spent every waking moment over the past 9 days, basically, just getting all that planted into the garden, a 3,000 square foot garden.
Yeah. Oh,
And it's hard.
that's
It's hard
priorities.
work.
That's priorities, you guys. Her house is 400 square feet, right?
Right.
The garden is 3,000 square feet. That's how you do. That's how you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. That's how we do. Yeah.
That's the
But
way
you
to
know
do
what?
it. I love that.
I don't care. I don't care who you are. You can learn everything you need to know today with today's technology.
Absolutely. Yeah, YouTube and the internet. Like, there's so many things that, absolutely, it's fantastic. It's so
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. That's, I mean, how I'm doing my little container garden and stuff is, and trying to figure out, like, okay, well, I've never done this before, but the internet has. And then just,
Yes.
you know, finding people who have and who have put tutorials on the internet, bless their hearts.
Yeah. And I can say 2 years ago, I used that 3,000 square foot, and it was mostly a fail because I did not know what I was doing. I did not have good dirt. I didn't have any compost, and I didn't know about worm castings, and I didn't know about, you
Yeah.
know, medical mediums recommended ocean sea minerals, and it was a big fail. It just was, and I used that as a learning curve. And I studied and I studied and I learned everything that I could. And last year, that 3,000 square foot was full of thriving food.
Woohoo.
And not only that, but my husband and I are beekeepers. We didn't know how to raise bees until it was, you know, introduced to us as an idea. And when I learned that not only could we help save the bee population, but it would help our food grow,
Yes.
I thought that's a no-brainer. So we've got 10 colonies of honeybees.
I love that.
Um,
I used to keep bees too. I miss it so much. I can't wait till we have a house again and I get to have bees again.
I can't wait for you to do that too.
It's so peaceful.
They are amazing. But so then last year when I had the thriving garden, nobody in this county, which of Western North Carolina, Bryson City, nobody that I know of is growing food through the winter. And I grew so much food through the winter that I had a pound of greens for dinner every night with all kinds of vegetables.
That's
And I
wonderful.
didn't have a greenhouse. I made hoop houses out of PVC pipe and like a thin cotton fabric so that the sun got in, but they wouldn't get frostbit. And
Right.
I couldn't believe it. You know, people that come over that see my garden, that saw my garden in the wintertime were like, how are you growing that? I'm like, try it. You know, you don't need all the bells and whistles. Just give it a shot. And
Yeah.
so that's amazing. Like right now, I just got everything in the garden up, but I'm looking forward to August, September when I start to plant for the fall and winter garden.
Yeah.
It's a full-time job.
It is. It is.
But
You really
but I'm
can.
functioning. My body doesn't, my body, I want to be honest with you. I have put my body through the paces. The whole reason I brought this up for the past 9 days is because I have really put my body through the paces. But I'm amazed how quickly I bounce back.
Yeah.
You know, the next morning, I'm like, I feel no pain. You know, I may
Yeah.
be achy. I'm definitely sunburned.
Right.
But that's just another sign for me of how resilient my health is because of medical medium.
Yeah.
And that just blows my mind.
I know. I love that. I love that because I've seen that happen more and more as time goes on. I can get an exposure where I can do something, I can exert myself, I can do whatever. And I'll think, oh, tomorrow I'm going to be sore or whatever. I'm going to, be crashed or whatever. Or in the past, it would have been weeks. And now it's just like, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm just fine. It's like it never happened. And
Yeah.
I'm like, right. Oh, right. My bounce back time is so much faster. I can just recover from things and go
Yeah.
on. And, my surgery, when I had, I honestly, for the first couple of days, I really did think I was back at square one, like of my healing. Like, I'm like, I'm going to have to do this all over again. And that was a sad thought. Like, I was really upset about that. I thought, oh gosh, I'm really back. And then, within a few more days, I was like, oh no, I'm not. I'm recovering. It's okay. I'll be okay. And, within a few weeks, it was like it never happened,
Yeah.
except my skin's clear and it wasn't before. So
Wow.
I think I do wonder if all that time, like my gallbladder was having issues that I sort of didn't really realize, and it was causing extra stress on my system.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's kind of why I always had the skin. I don't know. We'll see what happens as time goes on, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like I did, I just feel better.
Yeah. There's a radiance about you. Ever since your surgery, I've noticed that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And everything happens for a reason. I don't believe that there are any accidents. I really don't. Everything happens for a reason. And I think it all happens for our purpose, one way or the other. And even though it may be hard to see it at the moment,
Yeah.
if we can be open to that and less resistant, then that's when the miracles happen.
My friend says even that if things happen, how does she put it? If something happens that's sort of like darkness or harder or whatever, that God will use it and turn it around to our benefit or use it for our good. And I like thinking of things that way, that even if something does happen that either maybe wasn't part of the plan or wasn't supposed to, whatever, that it can be used, that the
Mm-hmm.
good can be extracted from it and you can or God can pull the good out of it and turn things around and put it in our favor. I
Yeah,
like thinking of things that way.
absolutely. Yeah, there's so many things I can think of where I've received confirmation of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like my surgery was definitely part like that kind of a situation
Hmm.
where it seemed like, I mean, I could have died for sure. If I didn't go have the surgery, I totally could have died. And I
Um,
feel like medical medium information, like, he saved my life again, because it brought me back from all that and helped me recover so much faster. And I'm so grateful. I'm so incredibly grateful.
yeah. And until you walk through it, I mean, you have no idea, but you actually got to experience all the work that you've done for yourself and your liver, and you were able to be resilient and
Yeah.
probably recover from that surgery quicker than most people.
Yeah, I think so, based on what they were saying, because I was off the pain medication within a couple days. It started to make me hallucinate, and I was like, no, I don't like this. It was horrible, and I was like, this, and it felt so weird to have those drugs in my body after being so clean for so long. I was just like, this is not okay. And I was like, maybe I can just live with pain and I'll be okay. And I just waited. I kind of spaced out. I said, let's not do a pain medication dose. Let's see, how long I can go. And we waited, and I think I one more time might have needed, so I think I took Tylenol for that last one. So I got off the what are they called? The
Narcotics.
that's the one. I got
Yeah.
off the narcotics, and I just took one more dose of Tylenol, and then that was it. No more anything at all. And they were like, holy, wow. They were kind of amazed that I did that, because it was just a few days. Well, it's like maybe 2 or 3 days after the surgery. And I was like, yeah, this has to come out. Like, I don't want these narcotics anymore. That's too much. And I didn't want to take the Tylenol because it's still bad for the liver and all that. I was like, I don't want to take that either. But anyway, I did one Tylenol, and then I was like, I can handle
Yeah.
this. And I actually didn't have any pain. I was amazed. I was like, how? I just literally had an organ removed out of my body. I've I have wounds like open all over me. There was like 6 that
Wow.
they had to go in from, and I was like, but it didn't hurt. Nothing hurt. It's crazy.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
It's perfect. And it's
it
just
was.
confirmation.
Yeah. Then I had to get it out of me. Then I had to like detox that stuff out, but it didn't take too much longer after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's
Okay.
incredible.
Well,
And
I think I have kept you talking for a long time. So, do you have any final words of wisdom that you would like to, if somebody's new on the path or just trying to start or not sure, what would you say to them?
I would say, first and foremost, know that your body has everything it needs to heal. And if you can, try to block out the noise, even if it's coming from professionals, and just go deep within yourself and have that knowing. And the other thing would be, just love yourself wherever you are on your journey. Unconditionally love yourself. If your legs are, you know, overweight and inflamed and you don't like how your body looks, but your legs move you around and you can walk and your arms work and you can smile, your body loves you unconditionally. And give yourself that love and that self-compassion, despite anything that's going on around you, whether it's circumstances or certain people or certain guidance, because there is hope for complete healing. And Achoda and I are not the only two talking about our experiences, our healing experiences with medical medium. There are 300 million people drinking celery juice now because of medical medium all over the world. And yeah, not everybody's talking about it. A lot of people are experimenting and kind of keeping their journey to themselves. But yeah, there's hope for healing. And especially in these times, you know, we all need to feel that empowerment.
Yeah.
Because we have it. We have it. We have everything that we need. And yeah, just, you know, even if you don't believe in a higher power, God, just believe in yourself. Just believe in yourself, because you can do anything. You can do anything. So yeah, and just start somewhere, anywhere. You know, take baby steps. If it takes you a year to get celery juice down, let that be. You know?
Because every bit that you do and every bit that you do for yourself, it's moving forward. Mm-hmm. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, be patient, be gentle. Those things are very important. The self-compassion may be the most important thing.
Absolutely. You know? And where can people find you if they want to learn more about your story and see your videos?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Smoky, SMOKY _mountain, MTN _paradise, Smoky Mountain Paradise. You can find me on Facebook under Michelle Miller. And in parentheses after my name is Shannon Lackey, my husband, because he didn't want his own personal page, but he wanted to be a part of mine.
Aww.
And also on YouTube now, we've got a brand new YouTube channel called Mandy and Michelle Talk Medical Medium.
And I'll put all the links in the description box below too.
Yes. And Mandy and I are alternating accounts on Instagram every week. So you'll want to follow her also and turn on your notifications for both of our accounts. And she is Mandy, MANDI _Palmer, PALMER _CHC for Certified Health Coach on Instagram. And we're going live every Thursday at noon to talk medical medium. So yeah, and I get messages every day from people from all over the world sending me private messages. So that's where I spend my early mornings and my late nights, is answering questions. And yeah, and it's my joy. I love it. And I always promised myself that I would always be that person that I didn't have as a child to turn to. I would always be that person for somebody.
That's fantastic. I love that. Healing it for yourself and healing it for other people, those wounds.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me and being here and sharing your story. And I love talking to you. And I love that you and Mandy are both sharing your stories and putting the message out there in the world. And
same for you. I'm so proud of you for all that you've accomplished and all the healing that you're sharing with everyone around the world. And it just means so much to me and to so many others. And I am honored, so honored to be here with you today.
Thank you.
Yes. I love you, girl.
I love you too. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give a thumbs up below. You can subscribe to my channel by dinging that subscribe button over there, or you can ding the bell next to it if you want to be notified when I post a new video. I love you, my healers and health seekers. Remember that you can heal and to stay curious, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.